We've seen the first verified case in Canada now where someone who took the AstraZeneca vaccine has gotten a blood clot, and I'm just wondering if we're at all concerned about that here.
Well, we've been tracking adverse events from immunizations throughout and making sure that we continue to listen to the advice of physicians like Dr. Hinshaw and the National Advisory Committee on Immunizations, making sure that all these manufacturers go through all the steps required with Health Canada before anything gets approved. And that's how we make sure that all the vaccines that we give out in Canada are safe and are effective. So, of course, we'll keep on tracking any adverse event, but the AstraZeneca vaccine, just for everyone to remember, is safe, it's effective, and we hope all the eligible Albertans are stepping up to take the AstraZeneca vaccine once available to them.
Well, we're seeing a lot of reports, not just in Alberta, but across Canada, that there are a lot of unused vaccines in certain areas, and I'm just wondering, what's our vaccine rollout sort of looking like right now, and how do we make sure that everyone who does qualify for one of these vaccines is going out and getting them if they need them?
So right now, I mean, most of the vaccines that we're receiving, as we receive them, are getting out the door as quickly as we're receiving them through the pharmacies and through AHS. We now have the family physicians who are also giving it out. And we encourage all Albertans who have any questions about harm or about any concerns they have with the vaccines, make sure that they're talking to their pharmacist, their physician, health professionals to be able to assess the risk for them. But we have the pharmacies are onboarded right now. They're doing a great job along with AHS and making sure those vaccines are getting out as quickly as possible to Albertans.
What do you envision the rest of this year looking like in regards to COVID and sort of going back to a little bit more normal times?
Well, obviously, we know with the vaccines, and we've given out now the millionth vaccine there's been over 1 million now that have been given out to Albertans. That means that our cases, the vaccines are not just the light at the end of the tunnel, but they are the end of the tunnel. We're going to see as more and more people get the vaccines that our cases will come down, despite the race with the variants that the vaccines are in right now. Cases will come down, hospitalizations will come down, and that will mean that restrictions will be eased as the pressure on our healthcare system. The focus for us will be easing as well.
Right. So are you picturing, this year we will have events like the Stampede and stuff go off without a hitch, or will we still have most restrictions still in place by that time?
Well, it's a changing situation. I mean, if more restrictions are needed for the near future, of course, we'll continue to be responsive to the evidence, and we hope we don't have any further restrictions. But we'll have to wait and see. We continue to work with summer festivals like the Stampede. The Stampede is still optimistic. We continue to make sure that folks in Emergency Operations Center have a table for them to discuss with the folks who organize the summer festivals, and make sure that we're working with them already so that they continue to do as much planning as they can. But it is an evolving situation. And we continue to be optimistic, knowing, though, that the current increase in cases is a little bit of a worry that we're continuing to gauge right now.
Throughout this whole thing, since February or March of last year up until now, it feels like we were doing very well for a while, but now with the variants and all that, we're kind of back to where we started, or in a similar place to where we started. Schools, at least in Calgary, are switching to digital only for a while. Most people are back to working from home, and I'm just wondering, is that discouraging to people and to the government?
Well, I think that, of course, we look forward to going back to a way of life where we don't have these restrictions. And we understand how frustrating. I'm thinking every Albertan, including those of us in government, are fatigued with COVID and looking forward to the restrictions being gone. But look, I think we we see these restrictions being opposed is because the cases were increasing, and really the reason that we had to tighten restrictions again this spring was because there was a race between vaccines and the variants, and the variants won because the federal government very clearly did not provide us in February and March when we were expecting to get those vaccines. Did not provide them to us, and the deliveries ended up being postponed really until now, until April. That's the disappointing thing for us. I think that's where we're frustrated. We know that Albertans are tired of restrictions and want to move forward, and us too. And I think now that we have the vaccine starting to arrive and starting to get in the arms of Albertans, we'll start to see the benefits of that.
I believe it was yesterday, at least, or 2 days ago, or whenever, the Prime Minister came out and said that he was in support of interprovincial restrictions in regards to traveling. We heard Premier Doug Ford talk about it, and then we've heard the Premier in BC also talk about it. I'm just wondering, do you think it's a good idea to set up those interprovincial travel restrictions, or should we try to avoid them?
Well, the advice I have from Dr. Hinshaw is concerns about enforcement. I think we'll continue to make sure that the restrictions that we are going forward with here in Alberta are going to be based on the evidence and based on where we see current concerns with the spread in the community. I mean, obviously the P1 variant and some of the quick spread in Alberta did happen with interprovincial travel from other provinces. But that being said, that's also just a consequence of community spread in general here in Canada. But we're happy to continue to work with our partners in other provinces and make sure we're listening to Dr. Hinshaw and her suggestions about how we limit community spread interprovincially or not. But look, as you mentioned, the Prime Minister and his comments about interprovincial travel, just to also point out that he also recently said about not having any regrets on procurement, and just to reiterate the disappointment that our government feels on behalf of all Albertans, that's not correct. I mean, to not have regrets on procurement is totally incorrect. We obviously the agreements, the purchase agreements, didn't include a delivery schedule for February and March, and we found ourselves behind even Eastern European bloc countries, which is just really disappointing for us, and one of the reasons why we now have the tightening restrictions throughout the country.